Hi, and welcome to The Grind. This is a series slash podcast that we do that's kind of like just discussing the sermon that we had just last Sunday, where we had Pastor Betty talking about the Mosaic covenant. So we're on a series about the covenants of God that he made, 8 of them, but then we're only talking about 4. So yeah, and here we have old cast member and then someone new, Michael. He is a good buddy of mine, and yeah, I think we all grew up in IC together, right? Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about covenants, and covenants are like basically like promises, right? So for you, have you ever kept your promise despite not wanting to? Like, for example, there was this one time my Filipino friend invited me for dinner, and he suggested to do Filipino food, and I love Filipino food, so I went on and doing it. And only till like a few moments before going there did I find out that it was a Filipino karaoke bar, meaning there was going to be karaoke and you're expected to do karaoke. And I myself, I like singing, I'd say, but I will say I don't have the best voice. Have you heard of this term called FCS?
No.
There's a joke, you probably have not heard of it, but FCS stands for Filipinos who can't sing.
Oh yes. Never.
I low-key identify as one. Anyways, so back to the story was that we had to sing, and I think we did Bohemian Rhapsody. I don't know why. No. And so there were some high notes that we were not hitting, and man, it was embarrassing. But I think to me that was like, I didn't really say I promise, but it's that I knew what I was going into, and I still kind of committed and fulfilled kind of like the idea, the going together and doing that thing, because I kind of just respect that friendship. I was like, oh, this is gonna be messy, but it's gonna be fun, And so that's I kind of like followed through with that promise. How about you guys?
Yeah, I think I make a lot of promises with my little brother, like borrowing money or borrowing snacks. Like every time he has a pile of snacks, I'm like, oh, can I have some? I'll pay you back double. So the next time I completely forget about it. I come back, oh, can I borrow some more snacks? He's like, you already owe me this much. He's like, okay, just again. So I end up owing him 4 times as many snacks. It's a compound interest.
So have you paid him back at all?
Yeah, I do tend to pay him back, but eventually.
I'm pretty sure that it's actually no. For him, it's your younger brother. But for me, I feel as the younger, you're also younger sibling. I feel we have the privilege of just yoinking from our older siblings.
Yes, that's so true.
Yes.
I think for me is sometimes when I meet new people, they tend to wanna like have that second meeting again. There's some people that are quite awkward to the point that I kind of don't wanna hang out or meet them again, but they're like, come on, like it keeps inviting me to have a coffee or lunch or dinner or whatnot, or just like a simple hangout. But then in me, I'm like, oh, I kind of don't want to, because it's quite awkward, or just like their personality is not really my vibe in a way. But then eventually there's this one time like someone kind of like invited me for, I think, just a hangout for a whole day and stuff, and she kept inviting me. So I was like, you know what, fine, I'll just give in. Just like, who knows, maybe this hangout would be fun, So I went, and then I mean, it's at first it was like quite awkward. She was the one who's kind of like talking. I'm just the one who's kind of listening. I'm kind of a listener in terms of like hanging out. And then at first I didn't want to, but then at the end, like gradually it's like, okay, I think it's fine. And then will I ever meet this person again? In me, I'm like, it's fun, but not really. It's not really my type of vibe, like her vibe. But yeah.
I think the reason why I brought this question is that we're talking about God's covenant, and that's what Pastor Betty said in her sermon, that she said that the Mosaic covenant is probably the most conditional one. Like one of the verses says that it promised blessings for obedience and curses for disobedience. So in that sense, that it's conditional, that whether they choose to fulfill it, blessings will flow, or if they choose to reject it, so comes the curses. And so she talks about Exodus 19, which I'll read a small passage. Exodus 19, 5-6. Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all peoples, for all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. And Pastor Betty says that this is actually the segment where it's what the promise of the covenant is. It's these three things that she listed: a treasured possession, a kingdom of priests, and a holy nation. And so, yeah, the way she talked about this treasured possession, it is like a marriage metaphor. And she said this, which is why I really like. It really stood out to me when she said, like, before I make a covenant with you, let me show you who I am. Like courtship, you know, you're getting a good deal.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm sure we've had like broken promises at least once in our life. And you know, I guess that some friends have a high tendency to not commit to their promises, and sometimes, you know, it happens so much that it doesn't surprise you anymore, right? And it really shows you like their character, especially those who don't commit to their promises. So then the next question is like, so for you in your guys' life, have you ever had like a promise made, and then whether kept or broken, did it reveal to you about that other person's character?
I think it reveals like someone's, whether that person is trustworthy or not.
Mm-hmm.
That's for me. Because whenever I talk to someone, especially when it comes to like personal stories or personal about me, I tend to like, please don't tell anyone about this. You know, like I trust you and stuff. But if that person didn't keep their promise, it reveals like, oh, I can't trust you anymore or something. Or if it's like the opposite, like vice versa, if that person kept that promise, like, oh, okay, I can trust you, like I kind of expect that this person would be trustworthy, and I could tell some personal things about me without, you know, having that concern of like, oh, it will spread around with other people.
So yeah, trust is definitely one of those things that really, when you really boil down to their genuine character, I'd say it is when someone is like really angry that they show their true colors. You know, and I think this is a similar scenario where that if this person commits or doesn't commit to their promises, I feel that kind of shows their character as well, right? That like this is their true self, because you know we tend to have like a good look that we want to show to everyone else. And so yeah, I think for me that depending whether they keep promises or not, it shows the first thing that I focus on is that it's how they value the friendship or relationship. You know, if it's someone who fulfills their promise, like for example, like my story, right? I wouldn't want to do something necessarily embarrassing, but if my friend is willing to do something crazy and embarrassing for me, right, then it shows me how much he values his friendship with me, that the embarrassment is not a higher prioritization over the friendship, that the friendship is higher priority, right? And vice versa, that if they break it, it shows you how much they don't really value the friendship, maybe to the point that like, you know, they're only friends with you when your friendship is like fitting for their time, like it's convenient for them.
Yeah, I think that's a deep point about the relationship side of it. I think sometimes it's just people self-centered and they're not actually capable of fulfilling the promise, or never intended to. They only thought about what they can gain, and in fact they were just thinking about themselves, and once they got that, they kind of just gave up on their side. Yes. So it does come down to relationship, a lot of promises. And that's kind of how I gauge sometimes whether I should continue a relationship, is like how consistent they are with promises and how on time they are.
Yeah.
Because even if they're not on time, it's like, if I keep going down this road, when are they gonna like suddenly not deliver?
Yeah. You only have so much grace that you can give.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I remember what you said reminded me of something my parents say, that like, you know, our generation especially like Facebook, you know, like, oh, he's my friend, but he's not really your friend. He's just someone you know. You're just acquaintances. And then that's what my parents say, that, you know, friends are, how many of your friends are real friends, you know. That's how you'd put it. So I guess how they treat their promises is one way to really gauge that. And so the other promises that were mentioned in Exodus, right, was that we are to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. So briefly, it's saying that we have a duty to represent God to the nations, and that we are also a nation that is different, being set apart only for God. And so one of the signs of our trust and dependence on God is keeping that Sabbath holy, keeping the Sabbath holy. So talking about rest, what do you usually do on a Sunday? Your rest day / holy day. What do you normally do?
Church.
Yeah.
Church.
Well, I guess for us too, that we actually no, Michael also, right? We tend to serve in church, right? Media, worship. And then stage hands.
Yeah.
Occasionally. Yeah.
All of us are.
Represent.
Yeah. Okay.
So actually, I don't think, maybe I won't treat Sunday as my rest day.
It's a work day.
It's a work day, exactly.
Yeah.
So because actually when I go back, like most things I see on social media, that like one thing everyone likes to do after church is go home and nap. Yeah, so that's me. So I don't think I won't call Sunday my rest day, but I'll say Monday is my rest day.
Because it's your day off.
It really is your Sabbath. And I think for me, actually it is a weekly routine that Monday ends up being my chore day, actually. Because the rest of the like I have my 5 work days, and then Saturday I do some volunteering, Sunday work day. And so Monday is my first completely day off. And I think that's my only time I get to focus within the house. Right, because every other time I'm coming home from work, I usually just want to like fellowship, eat, sleep. So Monday usually is my chore day or family day, I guess. So actually, I don't really get that much rest. It kind of explains it now.
Oh no.
How about you guys? What do you guys do on your rest day?
Yeah, I actually have 2 rest days a week. Usually I rest on like Wednesdays and Sundays. Well, I would say Sunday is my Sabbath because I get to go to church. I think Wednesday is like a physical rest day. I get to sleep in, but on Sunday, of course, I serve and I get to worship, because I think worship just does something completely different from physical rest. I feel so much more empowered and well, peace.
I mean, like, actually, you remind me that in high school we do like a lot of physical education class, you know, there's lots of sports, and actually after high school it's like completely stopped, right? And so some days I'll be like, you know, sometimes I just want to go for a run, you know. It's that weird yearning. And I think the same thing applies for me with worship, actually, because I actually don't really get to, in Sunday service, I actually don't really have the full liberty to worship because I'm usually still on cameras. It's actually same thing, is that I love sometimes just playing worship and just soaking. I think that it almost becomes like a necessity for me, right? And it reminds me of like what Pastor Betty said, that, you know, your Sabbath is not necessarily a day of rest, but it's just your day to kind of reconvene with God. It's just to reconnect with God. That I think she said along the lines that God saved us not so we can live. God saved us so that we can be with Him. Yeah.
Usually my rest day are Sunday, which is also a holy day and Sabbath day for me. Actually, my off day is also Monday, but I take that as like catching up with homeworks and like those things. So but like a fully rest and Sabbath day is like Sunday. One is church, I serve in the morning, but afterwards like I go back home, just like, you know, kind of rewind, reflect, and like do Devo as well, like have a time with God. It's also part of my rest, like having spending time with God is part of my rest, because I don't know, like soaking in, like what you said, soaking in God's presence, like it's a wonderful feeling, and it's like, you know, God gives us rest, and I feel that every time on Sunday. That's why like Monday I'm like, okay, time to do stuff. Although it's like I'm at home like chilling, but still, right, I still have to catch up some stuff. Yeah, since we're talking about rest, and are there any challenges of like reserving a day for rest? Like, do you guys like, I don't know, think about work or think about anything, and to the point that you want to like get things done? It's not really a rest because you're like overthinking a lot.
Yeah, that's kind of what we already talked about. I guess like to elaborate on that some more, right? That I feel, where did I see this? I think I saw this on like a news report that our generation is like, we've hit a point where we don't like the silence. Did you guys see that? Or like ever heard of it?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that like on the go, we always like want to tune into music, or if we're not doing anything, we like play TV in the background. Like we can't stay still, you know. And I think I admit that that's probably me. I'm one of them. That I always need to be doing something. I guess it's this idea that I need to be productive. You know, that I have a long to-do list, and so I think just having that to-do list is like, it's like this thing behind on my shoulder just staring at me like, are you gonna do it? Are you gonna do it? Yeah, are you gonna do it? How about now? I think so that really like, I think that kind of affects me with me maintaining a Sabbath day. Yeah.
I think similar to you. Like, I don't know. I have a lot in my to-do list as well. And then like, let's say Monday is usually off day, and usually as students we just chill on our off days. But whenever it's Monday, I'm like, I need to do something productive, or because like I rot in bed, and whenever I rot in bed I'm like, wait, this feels kind of wrong. I should be doing something. Maybe I should like go out like for a run. Go out for a run, or like I don't know, do assignment or do something. But yeah, I think that's kind of like one of the challenge, I would say, is just like something in me is like, yo, you should do something. Like, don't just rot in your bed, or I don't know, whatnot.
Yeah, I think a challenge I face when observing a Sunday is not setting apart the day, but like really setting apart time for like spiritual rest. Because like I said, worship just does something completely different, like reading the Bible, going for a walk. But like sometimes I'm just so tired that I just have to sleep in. I just have to refresh my body physically, and then it kind of gets in the way of the spiritual relationship aspect. So I kind of have to handle those things first before I can start with the worship and stuff.
Yeah.
Since we were talking about Sabbath, and Jesus even taught in the Bible, it even says that it's important for us to keep a Sabbath day. You know, in Exodus 20 verse 8-11, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. So basically Jesus is telling us like, oh, remember that seventh day we should rest and we should have a Sabbath. So how does Jesus' teaching on the Sabbath challenge or affirm traditional views of rest?
I feel from a non-Christian point of view, right, this rest day is basically a non-working day, you know, where you don't go to work, which means freedom, or like treating yourself. You know, I think this is kind of like the general view of rest, that it's your freedom to do what you want with yourself, I think. But then, as I said just now previously, that like what Pastor Betty said, that what rest is, it's, I think for me personally, the Sabbath is kind of like God's reminder to not forget about the relational aspect in that friendship relationship with God. You know, that this is kind of His covenant, right? That as long as if we do A, God will promise B. You know. So I think this is the few things that this is what we could do to honor God, is that like, I guess, instead of us being like, oh, I'm just gonna laze back, play video games, watch my favorite movies, read a book, all these things that's like for me, right? If I I choose to rest for the sake of reconnecting with God and not forgetting that relational aspect. I think that is my way of kind of like keeping up my end of the promise with God.
I think for me, as I mentioned, right, like God gives us rest. I feel like non-Christian do not see that. That's why I keep like I said, like Sunday are my rest day, because like God gives me rest, and like I could like reconnect with God. And like what you mentioned, like the traditional views of resting is like going out or like non-working day, right? So you're not really doing anything. Maybe you're just like at home or spending time with family, and that's considered their rest and not really reconnecting with God, which is a different feeling from our personal rest versus like resting in God.
I think like like I remember my younger self that we would always treat like Friday as like the best week, the day we all look forward to, because that's kind of like how the week goes. Like Monday is like the worst because it's right after the weekend, and then it goes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Friday is like, oh yeah, we're almost there, we're almost at the weekend. Because I think like that's kind of like it's like a roller coaster, This is like the peak that most people want to be at, where that's where kind of like the most fun is. Actually, that makes me think, that like while we choose to like spend time with God and reconnect with God, right? Non-Christians, from my perspective, what it seems like is that it's while we connect with God, they kind of reconnect with themselves. Like they start doing stuff they like. I think it's a way they see that is self-nourishing to some extent,
Yeah.
Like they're taking care of themselves. And I think that's also another thing. I think like what you said kind of reminded me about that is kind of like the different ways of prioritization that we have that differs us from them.
Yeah, you sum it up really well. Honestly. But
I definitely think that's kind of like how non-Christians view it. It's like self-nourishment. Like Jesus kind of phrased it as like Sabbath was created for the man, not man for Sabbath. So I think a lot of people think that, like as human beings we need to rest. Like man was created to rest, Sabbath, if you were to paraphrase it. And I think that's not true, because anyone can just keep working. They don't need a Sabbath. But instead, I think that God said Sabbath was created for the man, so we can get the other benefits that God has already set apart for us, like intentionally spending time to review what we've done in the week and kind of engage Him and get His opinion on it. To kind of sum up what I just said, I would say like non-Christian Sabbath would be like a performance-based rest. So like they rest and they can perform better, but like in a Christian sense, I would say a Sabbath is relational. So like we rest from our work so we can have relationship with God. So like what would you guys think is a good way to cultivate that relationship with God on a Sabbath?
I think actually what we said earlier, like taking a break from life and just like worshiping, and reconnecting with Him. I think that's already a good place to start. I think I mentioned this story on the grind before, but I'll just say it again because I feel it's fitting that, there was a time where I was on my way to this youth ministry, young adults, and I was like, in my head I was like, all right God, like I'm on ministry mode, and in my head I was like, all right God, what do you want me to say to this person? Is there any prophetic stuff you want me to do? Is there any healing you want me to do? I'm like a hyperactive kid. What's gonna happen? And I remember at this peak, like I was full of energy. God goes like, all right, you see that bench? Sit down. I'm like, okay, I sit down. It's like, okay, I'm sitting. You're gonna send someone to me? And God goes, no. Be quiet and relax. It's like the opposite of us. I was like, no. And so that's actually what I did, and it was actually when I took a break from all of that, and actually like in all that silence, my questions changed from what do you want me to do was like it started like, okay, so this is God and this is me, right? The whole hyperactive ministry mode was me like, all right God, tell me what to do, right? But it was only in this silence where nothing was happening did I finally go the other way. I was like, hey God, what's up? Is there something you want to like teach me? Is there something you want to reveal to me? Is there something that I'm missing out that you've been needing me to see to improve myself? You know, I think God used that that quietness to just help me like go back, like relationships. It's both ways. It's not just one way. So it helped me like realize that I needed to go back to God. And so I think for me, another way of building that relational aspect is really like putting the world as second priority, everything from the world second priority. And really, you know, we always say like, oh, God's my number one, God's my first priority.
Yeah.
But is he really?
Yeah.
I think there were a few times where I was like, yeah, God's my number one. But I'm pretty sure I think video games was my priority back then. So I think that's what it might look like for me.
Yeah, that's so good. It's kind of like opposed to rest so we can perform better. We kind of take time to initiate conversation with God and kind of listen, because it's so hard to hear from God when we're always asking and doing. And it's such a good example.
I actually remember I just saw this reel. It's a bit edgy, I might add, but it said you can't hear God because you already chose what he was going to say.
Oh, I saw that reel as well. Yeah.
I was like, but it's kind of right.
Yeah.
Like a little bit harsh, but there is truth to it. You can't really expect to hear God when you already have answers that you're expecting.
Yeah.
So I think it's those moments that you really put the answers you're expecting aside, then you can really connect with him. So yeah, I think Pastor Betty ended it with a statement I like. I think she said like, Sabbath is not the keeping of a day, but it's the receiving of a person, Christ our Lord himself. And I think like how we ended it, that the relational aspect of how important it is that, you know, relationship, it's both ways, you know. And so when we have those moments of just silence and rest, that we're able to reconnect with him, I think that's why like what I said earlier, you know, that's why Jesus died on the cross. It's not so we can live, but so we can have this relationship and interaction with him. So yeah, I think that's it for today. I hope that the discussion has stirred certain thoughts, maybe provoked some questions, and yeah, we'll see you next week. Bye.